All right, let's turn to Meet the Depressed.
Good Sunday morning. We begin with President Trump's historic overhaul of the federal government that is proceeding at an unprecedented pace and scale. The president has tasked Elon Musk, the world's richest man, with carrying out his mission. And now Musk and his team of young tech engineers have inserted themselves into at least 17 federal agencies, according to the New York Times, accessing sensitive federal data like Social Security numbers and bank accounts for millions of Americans. On Friday, President Trump defended Musk's role.
Is there anything you've told Elon Musk he cannot touch?
Well, we haven't discussed that much. I'll tell him to go here, go there. He does it. He's got a very capable group of people.
I love that. He tells him to go here, to go there. He does it. I mean, he sounds a little bit like a puppet. If I were Elon, I wouldn't appreciate that summary.
Very capable. They know what they're doing.
Now, President Trump says he has directed Musk to turn his sights toward the Pentagon. The Defense Department has billions of dollars in contracts with Musk through SpaceX and his other companies.
You said there's some areas where you wouldn't let him work because he has conflicts of interest.
If there was no, I haven't seen that. And he would know not to do it. So we haven't had that yet. But if there was a conflict, we would let him work in that area.
The president.
Oh, okay. Well, then end of story. Then nothing to worry about here. It's yes, this giant Pentagon contractor is now in charge, been given the authority to just slash entire government programs, including possibly at the Pentagon where he has contracts, but no conflict of interest there at all. I'm sure, for example, if he sees wasteful spending in all the contracts that he gets from the Pentagon, I'm sure he'll just cut that because he's so objective and independent. I mean, this whole thing is real. I mean, did people vote for Elon Musk? I mean, Democrats make this point. It's a fair one. Like, did he run for office? No. Yes, it's true. They promised Doge on the campaign trail, so it's not a complete surprise. But this idea that he can go and like just unilaterally decide what to cut and what not to, and we'll see. Is he actually going to cut the most wasteful agency there is, which can't even pass multiple audits, which spends like hundreds of millions of dollars just to conduct an audit that it can't even ultimately pass in the end? Is Elon Musk seriously going to go after the Pentagon?
I know the idea that well, actually, Aaron, he is, because we know that because Trump just told us that.
Yes, but with no conflicts of interest, totally objectively, clear-eyed. Yeah, well, that's going to be interesting.
Its agenda is facing serious challenges in the courts, with more than 24 lawsuits to date. Federal judges temporarily blocking Musk's team from accessing those sensitive Treasury Department records, pausing the Trump administration's buyout offer for federal workers, and for now blocking a plan that would have put thousands of USAID workers on administrative leave. The agency largely focuses on disease prevention, disaster relief.
One other thing, by the way, so there's a conflict of interest when it comes to the Pentagon, right? Which obviously he's in bed with. But the opposite thing is going to happen too. There's going to be a conflict of interest with his access to like the Labor Department data because and funding, because OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, has in a 5-year period fined Tesla like hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I'm sure he's going to be doing things that have a conflict of interest when he deals with the Labor Department, like maybe shut it down.
Relief and food programs in famine-stricken areas. First Lady Melania Trump praised the agency during her husband's first term.
We want to show the world that we care, and I partnered and I'm working with the USAID.
Also this week, President Trump stunned world leaders by floating in a...
Well, you know what? Maybe that's what they have in common, Trump and Melania, you know? Like they both flip-flop. Maybe that's like one of the things that they like to do.
Yeah,
like
she doesn't seem to...
Long walks on the beach, flip-flopping on policy.
Yeah, she doesn't seem to enjoy like kissing him. They always have these awkward kisses in public. So maybe that's where they come together, is just flip-flopping on, for example, you know, at one point caring or claiming to care about feeding people and now no longer caring about that whatsoever. But I do have to say, though, I don't want to minimize the suffering that will come from the USAID closure because vulnerable people will be hurt by this. HIV programs in Africa, for example. I mean, whatever you think of USAID, it does do some good around the world, and people who are vulnerable will suffer from it being dismantled or
Right.
severely curtailed. But at the same time, for example, on food aid, I will stand corrected if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. The USAID spends about as much as it does on food aid, a little bit more on food aid than it does on so-called democracy promotion, which means generally destabilizing countries that we want to control that aren't under US control. So if you're an agency, an aid agency, and you're spending just a little bit more on food aid than you're spending on so-called democracy programs that ultimately don't even spread democracy, they in fact undermine it. For example, in Ukraine, supporting people who overthrew an elected government, then your priorities are not on the level, and you do deserve scrutiny. Unfortunately, I don't trust Elon Musk and Donald Trump to
Right.
really go after the very damaging parts of USAID. They're focusing on so-called woke stuff,
Exactly.
which is very low-hanging fruit,
Right.
not the major, as far as I understand, the major programs that have destabilized countries, like in Ukraine, which we'll talk about more later on in the show. But
Yeah, there's no question that their priorities are not up to snuff. The question is, do they do good, and what is the good that they do, and is it really responsible to cancel that stuff?
it's not responsible to cancel the stuff that is good. I say
Right.
cancel the stuff like, for example, cancel programs that fund people who overthrow governments we don't like. I'm all for that. I don't think we need to
Mhm.
be, and certainly, if you're going to do that, at least don't call it aid. At least like don't
Right.
use an aid agency like USAID as a slush fund to overthrow governments. At least be honest about it and run it through the CIA.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's another thing. Like, it has to be, they have to do good, right, Aaron, in order for this kind of whitewashing of what they're doing. Like, in other words, they have to cover up the regime change stuff that they're funding with good stuff, or else it would be too transparent.
Well, speaking of transparent, let's hear about Donald Trump's. You know, he's sticking to his plans to ethnically cleanse and then own, in his words, Gaza.
American takeover of Gaza.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too.
You are talking tonight about the United States taking over a sovereign territory. What authority would allow you to do that? Are you talking about a permanent occupation there? Redevelopment?
I do see a long-term.
So I just want to say that that's good that this journalist, who I believe is from NBC or MSNBC, she's like a very mainstream journalist. That's good that she's calling out Trump's the illegality of what he's doing. She's acknowledging the sovereignty of Gaza. But why wasn't she doing that when Joe Biden was funding genocide and breaking all these international laws? Like, all these people all of a sudden discover empathy for Palestinians, or discover that they care about the rule of law or international humanitarian law.
Yeah, and as cable news bookers, they also discover that Palestinians exist. So you will see now on CNN a lot more Palestinians coming on to criticize the president than were doing so when Joe Biden was the president. When Biden was president, a couple of MSNBC shows like Ali Velshi's show and Ayman Mohaldin, they had on Palestinians, but the rest of them generally ignored them. But now that Donald Trump's the president, you'll see a lot more Palestinians on TV.
Just like they held that 60 Minutes special, right? Which exposed all the ways that they were violating laws. They couldn't release that until after Kamala had lost.
That's right. 60 Minutes did a really good story featuring all these State Department whistleblowers, all the people who resigned from their positions in protest of the genocide, documenting how US bombs have destroyed Gaza, killed people. They had really powerful footage of that. And they held it until after Kamala Harris had lost. And then they were like on Biden's way out the door, they finally released this expose of all his support for war crimes inside Gaza when the damage was long done.
Ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece.
Miriam Adelson loves the idea.
Yeah.
Alan Dershowitz loves the idea.
Yeah.
Jews across from New York to Florida, like wealthy Zionist Jews, love the idea. So hey,
Yeah.
everyone's on board.
Jews like us, though, hate the idea.
Well, he didn't speak to us.
Right. I know.
Piece of land.
President Trump's words prompting swift condemnation from Arab nations like Egypt and Jordan and raising doubts even among some Republicans.
I'm not supportive of having the American people paid.
I was like, oh my God, he's not supportive of this, of Donald Trump owning Gaza. Wow, listen to that and listen to his reasoning.
Rebuild Gaza. I don't think that's our responsibility.
Probably need some clarification on what exactly that means. He's a developer of resorts. I think he sees a good opportunity. But we need to, obviously Gaza is not ours. It's sovereign. It's part of another country.
Well, I mean, but who is he referring to there? Is he saying it's a part of Israel? Because
Yeah, exactly.
that's like just as offensive as Trump's call for the U.S. to own Gaza, because
Right.
neither Israel or the U.S. have a right to a single inch of Gaza. But of course,
Yeah.
that thought can't permeate the minds of U.S. politicians. It just doesn't register. And that's the
Right.
problem here. What Trump said is so crude and offensive, and it should be dismissed. But the outrage over it obscures the ongoing outrage of Israel continuing to occupy Gaza after destroying it. And what Trump is basically saying to Palestinians is like, you have no future there. Whether we own it or not, you have no future there. And then he wants them to leave and not return. And he's endorsing the most hardline Israeli vision there is. Like, there's some Israelis who will say at least like, that we shouldn't go and expel everybody in Gaza. But Trump is taking the most extreme hard right Israeli line possible, that Palestinians in there should leave. And that's just part of a long-term Zionist project to ethnically cleanse Palestinians. It began with Israel's founding, and Trump is on board now, officially, with the most extreme element of it.
Yeah. And just pushing back a little bit on what Kennedy just said, we do have a responsibility to rebuild Gaza. We are the ones who funded and facilitated the genocide there, the devastation there. Israel would not have been able to destroy it without our help. So of course they deserve the financial support of the United States.
Absolutely. There should be reparations.
Yes.
Reparations paid to Palestinians, not just for the genocide, but for decades of occupation and displacement. People, the majority of the population in Gaza are refugees. They come from places inside what is now Israel, and Israel has stolen their homes, their ancestral homes. They deserve, if Israel is going to insist on never letting them return to their homes, which they have the right to do, then where's the offer of compensation and the apology? It never happens. And Trump is now advancing that agenda by saying that they should leave Gaza. They can't even stay there.
Right. It's so funny. Some of Trump's defenders online, I've seen this, are like, he's not ethnically cleansing. He's giving them nicer places to live. It's like, I don't think you understand the definition of ethnically cleanse. When you make people leave where they are, that's ethnic cleansing.
Yeah, I've also seen people saying he's playing like 3D chess, like with Netanyahu. He's putting pressure on Netanyahu with this outlandish idea. He's saying that, like, if you don't solve the Gaza problem, then we're going to come in and clean it up. It's like, no, he's just endorsing Netanyahu's wildest dreams of expelling as many people as possible. That's what he's doing.
And also, the other thing that's really frustrating about the kind of awakening of people's consciousness is, there are tons of libs who reacted to the news about Gaza and his plans to own it by saying really offensive things like, I hope you guys are happy now, Dearborn, Michigan people, or good thing we got rid of Genocide Joe. It's like, wait, it's not like things were good under Biden. It's not like an ongoing genocide was okay. I'm not defending Trump's plans, but it's not worse than what Biden was doing. It's crude. I mean, it's more crude the way he's framing it, but an ongoing genocide is worse, I think, than his plans.
Yeah, an ongoing genocide is exponentially worse than the president saying some really offensive things.
Yeah.
That's a given. But again, people whose political outlook is framed entirely by what Trump says out loud can't process that because they have, what's called Trump derangement syndrome.